be talking about how it is that China is dumping the dollar. They are going to get out of dollars. They are dumping U.S. treasuries. They are saying goodbye to the United States and ultimately going to destroy the economy of the United States on account of their no longer wanting to use the dollars. Now, I found it very difficult to internalize that particular sort of idea when it comes to China dumping the dollar and getting out of the dollar and not wanting to use the dollar. I find this difficult to try and wrap my head around, considering how much dollar denominated debt that China has. Now, when you start looking into some of the issues that China will be facing, they are in a hell of a dilemma. They need to get dollars. They need dollars to pay their debts. And so I left down in the description two links. One of them is to a paper coming out, I believe, out of the Bank of Boston, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. It's a little old, November 1st, 2022. Dollar funding stresses in China, right? It's a big old document here. I got it right here on my computer. And now this is a pretty long document. It's like 20 something pages long. And in this, if you go and read through this, you will find that the amount of dollar denominated debt that is outside of Chinese like currency, right? It's in their foreign currency debt. 84% of that, from what I understand, is in dollars. So although it's not an extreme amount considering how much is in yuan, but when it comes to the foreign currency debt issuance, the dollars is by far, far, far more abundant in the foreign currency debt than any other currency is. So when it comes to paying that portion of the debt, they are desperately, desperately looking for dollars. So now in this, I'm not going to go reading through the whole thing. What I just wanted to do is read this one section here, and it says this. Heavy global reliance on dollar-denominated debt has been a phenomenon for some time. Non-U.S. banks commonly issue short-term dollar liabilities and did so even before the run-up to the global financial crisis. So this is something that's been going on for quite some time. And remember, this article. I mean, this paper came out a few years ago, but still, it's still relevant. Many non-financial firms in foreign countries also finance some of their activities in dollars. The dollar liabilities of non-U.S. banks have now surpassed their 2007 levels, as shown in Figure 3, reproduced by the IMF in 2009. Right, and then it goes on again. Something von Peter of 2020 and the IMF of 2019. They have like all this where the chart came from. But then it goes on to say, point to the increased extent of dollar borrowing by foreign entities, including non-U.S. banks, non-bank financial institutions, and operating companies. The outstanding quantity of dollar-denominated international debt securities and cross-border loans is 26% of global GDP and 50% of the outstanding debt securities in all currencies. Factors that support global reliance on dollar funding, including complementary between dollar trading invoicing, and the dollar as a safe haven, a preference among global investors for dollar-denominated fixed income assets, and an independent central bank, the Federal Reserve. Now, I know that was complicated to kind of go through, but if you're essentially listening to the heart of this, there is dollar-denominated debt that they are saying has grown quite, not exponentially, but growing quite substantially ever since the Great Financial Crisis. And it's not slowed down. China's dollar-denominated debt is primarily issued by its banks, corporations, and local government financing vehicles, otherwise known as LGFVs. The latter two categories are often lumped together, CGFS, before providing a rough sense of magnitudes of dollar borrowing by Chinese entities. We emphasize the incompleteness of the available data. For example, the currency denominated of debt issued by Chinese entities is often not reported or is reported inconsistently. Maturity information is typically difficult to find. Right there. That last little bit. Now, I understand that this is a very boring topic, but if you really truly want to understand what's going on, you have to internalize this information, which means that you have to focus in on it and listen to each word that is being said here, because it's so critically important to then understanding what it is that's taking place out there. When you get this news that they are dumping dollars, they don't want to be in the dollar, they very rarely ever deliver the information with it that they have a lot of dollar denominated debt that they have to face. Let me read this again. They talk about the incompleteness of the available data. For example, the currency denominated of debt, or I'm sorry, the currency denomination of debt issued by Chinese entities is often not reported. We don't know how much dollar denominated debt exists out there. That's another way of saying that. Right? Is often not reported or reported inconsistently. The maturity information is typically difficult to find. They don't even know when the debt is due. Bang. That right there, that little bit, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. If you want to hear this whole dollar funding stresses, we covered this on the channel. See, we did this months and months ago. I don't even know how long ago we did it. We did it in a members only live stream. It costs you $1. You go and pay $1 to join the channel. You will find access to the member only live streams where we covered this particular document months ago. That's why we're not concerned about dollars being dumped by China. They have dollar denominated debt that they have to cover. And it's still an issue. I'm going to show that to you here in just a second. All right? So you really want to get this information. This is how it is that the Uneducated Economist team has put together the actual information, the truth of the matter. We look beyond the propaganda information that most people are getting their information from. We go and we actually find deep information on how it is that the dollar funding stresses in China is really a major problem. They can't find enough dollars. All right. We're going to move on to this article here. Just give me a second to pull it up, because I think this article actually is pretty good. Come on, there we go. And this is, I mean, again, this came out, it was a little while ago. I mean, I don't even think it was 6 months, 8 months ago, something like that. When did this thing come out? This is coming out of Carnegie, written by a guy named Robert Greene. Okay, October 3rd of 2024. It's a little old, right? Not like insanely old, but it's a little old, right? And now, what is this article? I mean, literally, the title of the article, China's Dollar Dilemma, right? Because they face a major dilemma in how it is that they are going to acquire the dollars they need in order to pay off their debts. Let me see. Where was it that I wanted to read from this thing? Oh, shoot. Come on. Dang, I get advertisements popping up. And now I can't find it in here. Okay, I guess it is right here. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Only a small portion of Chinese high level of debt outstanding is foreign currency denominated, but nearly half of the mainland China's external debt is dollar denominated. And by late 2023, the mainland Chinese economy recorded over $1.1 trillion in external dollar denominated debt, which accounted for 84% of Chinese registered external debt in foreign currency. Much of this debt is attributed to the banking sector. In the fourth quarter of 2023, mainland China's banking sector reported $418 billion in cross-border dollar liabilities. China's external dollar-denominated debt is also attributed to the local government financing vehicles, the LGFVs, like we were talking about just a minute ago in the Boston paper, which at the start of 2024 had approximately $30 billion in offshore U.S. bonds set to mature within the year, accounting for an estimated 7% of the total LGFVs 2024 debt maturities. So, Anyway, it goes on. But I think the beginning of it is just to just kind of, show how much dependence that China has on dollars. Like their dollar denominated debt that they have issued is quite vast. And it's not something that is just going to disappear. Like a lot of times I hear this argument that says something of the nature, well, they'll just pay in their own currency or they'll pay in another currency or something like that. No, they won't. Right? No, they won't. It's because the people who are accepting or who have lent that money to them, who have essentially bought that bond or, that instrument of debt, when it was paid for, it was paid for in dollars. And when it comes due in dollars. And they're not going to accept anything else because what they're going to do with those dollars is they're going to turn around and pay their debts with them because they have dollar denominated debt too. See, now China's facing this right now. You can tell that this is happening because think about it. China is selling U.S. treasuries, right? People are like, look at it. They're dumping out U.S. treasury. In fact, I could probably just go and look it up right now. I don't even know. I haven't even I didn't link an article, but I bet, let's see, U.S., let me see. China dumps treasuries. And I bet you I could find just massive articles on it, right? I mean, all over the place in the news feed. Is China dumping U.S. bonds? U.S. rally at risk of China may be dumping treasuries. Investors dump U.S. government bonds and faith America falters. Okay. Is China dumping U.S. treasuries? It's just all these articles asking about it. Now think about this for just a second. Okay. If you have a dollar denominated asset like a U.S. treasury, all right, this is your asset. It's just like I got this asset and I go and I sell this asset. What is it that I get in return for that asset? You're getting some cash, right? I mean, you just sold your dollar denominated asset. It's dollar priced, right? You just sold it. And what do you have in your hand? You got cash. So now, do they just take the cash and throw it away? Of course not, right? I mean, they didn't take the cash and just throw it away. What are they doing with it? I mean, unless they go off and buy something, sanctions and crap and going on, everything out there. No, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to sell that dollar denominated debt, get the cash, and pay their dollar denominated debt. See, this is what's happening as the economy is slowing down. They have to sell. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. This is the same case regardless. I did the exact same thing just a little bit ago. I sold off some dollar denominated assets. I sold off some stock and I paid my debts. I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, I was paying on a credit card. I was paying some taxes. I was doing some other stuff with it, but it was essentially debt that I was paying. I sold my dollar-denominated debt, and I bought that. I was stocks to taxes and credit cards. But China is essentially the same thing, right? They got the U.S. Treasury. That's their asset. They sell that off. They take the cash. They don't want to set it on fire. They don't really want to spend it in the United States because, piss on them. We're blocking purchases from them anyway. And so we'll just use it to pay off the dollar-denominated debt, which is quite extreme. Does that make more sense than anything else? I mean, it was like, I hear all these people who are like, oh man, they don't want the dollar, piss on the dollar, they hate the dollar, they're not in the dollar. And I'm like, no, they are very into the dollar. Like, there is very little doubt in my mind that they are very much into the dollar. And just the idea of them selling U.S. Treasury even says to me that they need the cash to pay their dollar-denominated debts because that's what people do when they sell their dollar-denominated assets. You think about it, the more they sell it, the more they dump those treasuries out there, the more they lose value. And as people look at that and they say, oh, that's punishment to the United States. That's punishment to the United States. Think about it. It's punishment to themselves. They don't get as much dollars. Now, I understand that there is a reflection that can be had on this that says, hey, I'm going to give a different meaning. But ultimately, just think about what the outcome is. They took a dollar-denominated asset, got the cash, and are paying off their debts with it because the dollar funding stresses in China are quite extreme. And if you have a slow economy happening and things are very difficult and you do not have as many purchases taking place where you can get those dollars in, how do you get the dollars? Got to sell your assets. That's all there is to it. It's really like, I'm not trying to say that it's just so simple to understand, but it literally is just that simple. It gets complicated when you think about the conditions in which that this has to occur. Then it gets really complicated. Then you start, talking about the tariffs and the laws and the fighting back and forth and the political actions and all this other stuff. But if you just take a farther grander view of it, and although those things are very important and probably critical for a lot of people, especially when it comes to the decisions of investments and stuff like that, if you look about the overall issues that are happening out there, those are the keys, right? Those are the key issues that are happening, in which that the dollar funding stresses in China are so extreme that they have to sell their dollar denominated assets in order to get the cash to pay those things off. That's why people are looking at it going, they're trying to get out of the dollar. It was just like, they're not. They are, but they're not. They're kind of forced to do this, or else, suffer the consequences of debt defaults and whatever, loss of credit ratings and confidence and all that other stuff. Let's check out the super chat. I got one going here. Let's go look at that. All right, thank you, William G. Atheist number one, one of the biggest contributors to the channel, man. Constantly with the super chats, and I really appreciate that, man. Well, Simon, I have now seen several posts of people looking for safe haven currencies. Most were talking basket and zero included greenback. Well, I understand that most people are probably going to look at that, and then if you read an article and say, hey, they don't want these greenback dollars, they want out of the dollar and all that other stuff, that's just fine to say, right? And you can probably see evidence of it and find articles of it. It doesn't mean that that's the reality of the situation. Go and type in any one of the BRICS nations, except for maybe Russia, but any one of the other ones. Just type in Brazil dollar-denominated debt, China dollar-denominated debt, India dollar-denominated debt, South Africa dollar-denominated debt. You put in that and go and search and look for the articles, because you're probably not going to find them very easily. You actually do the research on it. You're going to find that every single one of these nations are in the exact same position as China. Right? Maybe not as bad as China is, but they essentially are in the same position where they have. Look, go back to the dollar funding stresses document there for coming out of Boston. They even talk about the Korea in the very beginning of it. Where is that thing? Files, funding stresses. Okay, the need for U.S. dollar funding during the financial stress in the mid of March of 2020 as the COVID pandemic news shocked markets was evident in the number of countries. Notably, however, China's dollar liquidity needs received little attention. Given China's significant economic and financial linkages to the United States and the rest of the world, financial instability there could have implications for the global economy. Hence, you see, they know that. See, people thought I was absolutely delusional yesterday when I said that, Trump and China are buddying up in order to create an inflationary scenario within their countries to save their economic policies or their monetary policies. You think about it, notably, however, China's dollar liquidity needs received little attention. Given China's significant economic and financial linkages to the United States and the rest of the world, financial instability there could have implications for the global economy. They know that they're all linked together. Think about it, how is it that all the countries around the world responded to COVID in lockstep? It's because they're all linked together. They're all they're all in the same group message. I don't know what to say, man. It's just they know the issues that they face, but they can't go outright and tell you, because then it wouldn't work. All this crap would just essentially fall apart if they told you the truth, right? You can't handle the truth. And not that they would ever do it anyway, because telling you the truth would mean that they wouldn't guide you into the direction they want you to go, herding people like sheep, right? Okay. Hence, it is useful to develop a deeper understanding of the dollar liquidity needs of Chinese banks and the financial corporations, and to probe whether existing avenues of dollar funding for banks and other firms in China are sufficient in times of stress. This is our objective. They're trying to figure out a way to get the money to them. Right? Let me read it again, just so you can, this is how the truth is so much stranger than the fiction. I'm telling you guys, people love the artistic fantasies that are getting blasted all over the news, but it's not reality. The reality of the situation is they know that they have to deal with the fact that there are going to be liquidity issues. Let me read it again. Hence, it is useful to develop a deeper understanding of the dollar liquidity needs of Chinese banks and non-financial corporations, and to probe whether existing avenues, right now, this is back in 2022, if existing avenues of dollar funding for banks and other firms in China are sufficient. Like, can we get you the dollars in time? China, you need dollars. Can we do it in time? Right? In sufficient time of stress. This is our objective. Okay? See, this is why I don't fall for any of this stuff out there. All these people out there talking about how I'm like, there's no way that they're dumping dollars. There ain't no way. Right? There ain't no, read this document. By the time you're done with this document, you're going to be looking out there going, what are these clowns talking about on the news, man? They ought to read, everybody who is talking that stuff ought to go read Dollar Funding Stresses in China, given by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, November 1st of 2022. There's a link down in the description. Go check it out for yourself. All right? And you'll see that all of this stuff is really just trying to guide the fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the people so that they can create a situation that is benefiting them, which is an elevated inflation expectation. It doesn't work. Like, you think about it, the elevated inflation expectation, the fear of tariffs, 125% tariffs, tariffs at midnight, tariffs on day one, tariffs in 90 days, tariffs of flexibility and negotiations, failed to raise the CPI. It actually lowered it. The CPI came down from what they're expecting. Right? It still went up. I mean, it just didn't go up as much as they were hoping for, even with an elevated inflation expectation. It didn't work, or it's not working very well. And so these two have to keep battling it out and do their best to elevate their inflation expectation to hopefully get themselves, well, especially China, to get out of a deflationary scenario and to keep the United States from falling below their above 2% to keep their inflation moderately above 2% for some time, whatever the hell that means. But that's essentially their goal, since that was literally expressed by Jerome Powell August 27th of 2020. See, I can't, like, that, guys, I have studied this stuff and researched it and internalized it so much that there is literally, I don't even need this stuff anymore. I just know that it's happening. All these people think I'm delusional, crazy, thought I was really dumb when it comes to like some of these things that are taking place within China and them getting out of the dollar and the BRICS nations and all this other stuff. It was just like, no, man, I am not. I have done so much research into this stuff. I have the documents listed there. I show evidence of it constantly. I let you guys go and do the research for yourself, and yet nobody has ever disproved the credible threat theory, because the credible threat theory is by far the most accurate one. Can't beat it. It's the only one that is absolutely dialed into the monetary policy. Everybody else thinks that the Fed's screwed up and don't really know what they are doing. The credible threat theory absolutely says they are conducting themselves right the way they want to. Okay? And most of it has to deal with the perception of the people. And it's propagated through the mainstream media. I don't know how else to explain that. Let's read some of these comments here. Wow, look at them all. We got 672 people watching. Nice. Go hit that like button. We got 125 people who have hit the like button. Let's break this stuff down even more. Let's get more people understanding the credible threat theory so that they can recognize what it is that's truly happening out there, so they can see through this propagandized information. Again, we covered this particular thing months ago, like a while ago. That's why people who are following the Uneducated Economist and the credible threat theory and the team that we have built here on this channel, we're not shocked by any of this stuff out there. People are losing their mind. Oh man, the dollar is on its way out. They are saying goodbye to the dollar. They're telling the dollar, and I'm like, not even close. They have so much dollar denominated debt, they're going to have trouble in the future trying to figure out a way to acquire the dollars they need. In fact, the Federal Reserve is trying to figure out a way to get them the dollars they need during times of stress. They just said it in the very opening of this dang document. They say it, right? Probe whether existing avenues of dollar funding for banks and other firms in China are sufficient in times of stress. If they told you about this, straight up told you about it, none of it would work. None of this, the whole monetary policy would simply just be gone. It would not even, we would not even be witnessing anything like the way it is. Like, I couldn't even describe what it would look like, because it would not be this, because part of this is literally keeping the people in the dark. And since most people don't really want to go and research it because it's boring as hell, right? And it's difficult to get through all this. You know how long it was to try and get through this document? That dollar you spend will be the most boring dollar you will ever experience, and I guarantee you it'll probably be one of the most informative ones too. Right? The stuff isn't easy to get through. I know it, guys. I mean, but I try to make it entertaining as best I can. I come out here and try to be excited about it, to try and show you where the information is so that you can internalize it for yourself, so you can laugh at those people on TV who don't have a clue of what it is that's happening. You can say, well, why don't you just go and look at the words that they are using themselves so that you don't have to, on TV, look like an idiot when you say 2% target, right? And I don't mean to call people names because that's not something that I appreciate when people do to me, but that's exactly what's happening if you just don't go and look for the information yourself. They have repeated it time and time again, moderately above 2% for some time, right? And I don't know how to stress that enough. Once you have internalized that they're going for moderately above 2% for some time, then everything really starts to make more sense on how it is that they push for an elevated inflation expectations. And I understand that most people would not know why they would want an elevated inflation expectation. And I know that's difficult to wrap your head around, but it has to do with something called the neutral interest rate and pulling that neutral interest rate ever higher. Right? I mean, where is it? The full report. This is February 7th of 2025. I kid you not, guys. Look, it's right here. Just go and Google it yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. The damn YouTube camera flips the damn image. I don't know why YouTube app does it. I have my camera set so that it's the other way, but as soon as I turn the video on, it flips it. Anyway, this is the report to Congress. Literally, you can Google this. Report to Congress, Monetary Policy Report. Right? February 7th of 2025. It should not be that hard to find. It should pop right up. In that report, you just go down to the statement on long-run goals and monetary policy strategies. It's about 4 or 5 paragraphs long. Towards the end of that statement, it says the inflation rate over the long run is primarily determined by monetary policy, and hence the committee has the ability to specify the long-run goal of inflation. For inflation, the committee reaffirms its judgment that an inflation rate of 2%, this is where people get super confused, so you listen tight, right? Judgment that inflation rate at 2% as measured by the annual change in the price index for personal consumption expenditures, right? This is what the CPI, right? The PCE, I'm sorry, is most consistent over the long run with the federal statutory mandate. So this is where everybody got locked in. They said, oh, 2% target. 2% target, that's what they're going for. 2% long run inflation goal is 2%, 2%, 2%. They get this. But the committee continues to say, the committee judges that long-term inflation expectations that are well anchored at 2%. Now think about this. This is something different. They said they defined that long-term inflation expectations. That's a difference from inflation. Inflation expectations. All right. The committee judges that long-term inflation expectations that are well anchored at 2% foster price stability and moderate long-term interest rates, and hence the committee's ability to promote maximum employment in the face of significant economic disturbances. Here we go. This is the key to it. This is what everybody is missing. See, everybody was locked in on what I just said. They heard that part. They know that part. Even a bunch of people I see who have already exited the live stream right now are going to miss this, right? Here we go. This is where everybody is missing it. In order to anchor long-term inflation expectations at this level, the committee seeks to achieve inflation. See the difference? They already switched. They went from inflation expectations to inflation. Inflation expectations is different. In order to anchor long-term inflation expectations at this level, the 2% target, the committee seeks to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time, and therefore judges that following periods when inflation has been running persistently below 2%, appropriate monetary policy will likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. That is written into the strategy. This is something that everybody has missed. They do not believe that the Federal Reserve is going for moderately above 2%. They believe that the Fed is going for a 2% target. They have missed this. And this is one of the things that I know is propagandized information that is being pushed out there, because if you go and read Time Magazine, USA Today, all these other places, you will find there is articles written that say that the Federal Reserve goes for a 2% target and sees nothing else. They literally say it. They go for a 2% target and they do not see it any other way. But yet right here, the Federal Reserve says within their own statement to Congress just back in February 7th that they are seeking to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. 99% of the people do not see this. And this is one of the reasons why I know that the Uneducated Economist crew has it better than anybody else. We have broke this information down. We have researched it. We have talked about it, communicated, had the conversations about it, seen it from so many different directions, internalized the information, and thought about it in ways that have then given us the ability to make the best decisions for ourselves. Because every single one of us owns our own economy. We can't rely on anybody else to step up and say, hey, man, I'm going to make the best, most appropriate decisions for you. Screw everybody else. You get the most appropriate decision, and we're going to do it for you. All right. Is that really what people are asking for out there? Yeah, I think it is. And so when they look at the information, they're begging for it to be propagandized, hopeful information, or fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's what's going on here. Again, I have so many documents here that I can prove my case time and time again. Okay. All these people out there who like to spread this fear, uncertainty, and doubt and not deliver the appropriate information, literally leaving the links down in the description so that you can go and judge it for yourself. Take my opinion with a grain of salt for all I care. This is just my opinion. Now, this is the entertainment part. The information was delivered already with the links. All right? I shared a little bit out of it to say, hey, man, here's some points that I would like to talk about, and then I deliver some opinion with it, and whether or not you're entertained by it is whether or not I'm going to get a bunch of views. The information doesn't change. The meaning behind it is up to you. All right? Somebody says, man, I don't like the way you drink all that coffee. You get all anxiety-ridden or something of that nature. And I think to myself, it works. Right? Scary, fear-mongering titles and descriptions and 30 seconds of pushing the buttons, I don't know, and then deliver the information. It's just the way it goes. All right. William G. Atheist, thank you so much again, man. Trump is going to the SCOTUS this week and next to remove Powell. And this is where it's flawed because people screw this up. Policy does not go he's going to remove Powell. You think he's going to remove Powell? No, that's not going to happen because he doesn't even have the legal authority to do that. Right? So, we've actually broke that down again. William G. Atheist, there is a members-only live stream where we actually talk about how it is that the governors, the presidents, and essentially the chairman are elected through the Federal Reserve processing system. The president and the administration has powers of approval and somewhat of a decision on who it is that is going to be approved into those positions, but they do not really have any power on how those people are working themselves up through the banking system to get into that approval position, and they have no power to remove them unless they do something like illegal, right? So no, that's propaganda. That's pure propaganda, artistic fantasies, pure imagination. Okay, he can't do it. I mean, unless there's some change to the way the law is written, he just simply can't. All right. All-nighter hider, man. Thank you for being up in here, brother. I appreciate you. The Fed is a private membership association. PMAs are incredibly strong and independent from government. Yeah. All right, Mr. Balloon Pimp, didn't Trump fire Yellen to get Powell? No, no, that didn't happen. That like it wasn't a firing. Yeah. Um, that's what I find really interesting is like Trump approved Powell and then like immediately like was mad at him. Like, it was just like I'm like immediately. Yeah, and so I'm thinking, man, that went downhill fast, didn't it? And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute here. Nah, there's something else going on here. And when that was all taking place, like I questioned at the time, but I wasn't quite sure of what it was because I was still developing the credible threat theory at that time. But I was looking at that and I'm like, there's something else going on here. And that's where, like, towards the end of his administration, when he was screaming at Powell to lower interest rates and that he should take interest rates into negative territory and that they should be printing money. And I'm like, no way in the world did he just honestly just say that to the American people, did he? And then sure enough, yeah, that's exactly what he was saying. And he knows that all the rich people in the room knew why he would want that. I mean, he straight up said it. All the rich people know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm thinking, dang, man, you're pretty bold to say this stuff. But since most people didn't catch it anyway, I mean, he's kind of blatant and stuff like that. So I mean, whatever. I don't think that I think them two. I believe the two of them are buddy buddy. There's nothing that could happen to the monetary policy that would be any different by the removal of Powell anyway. See, this is what I find pretty, like, even if they did, like, it doesn't flick Powell away. Boo, there you go, right? You got to change the voting members of the FOMC if you want any difference to the monetary policy. That's what I find so like comical about it is like that's why I keep going through these speeches. That's why I have all these different speeches from all these different people. Powell is one of them, right? I got Jefferson, I got Bowman, I've got, Clarita, I got like, it's just like Waller and all these people, right? It's because all these different people vote on monetary policy. And then when they're done voting on monetary policy and they're done talking about it to each other, they go to Jerome Powell, the chairman, or whoever the chairman is, and say, okay, go speak on our behalf of the FOMC. Right? So when Powell is speaking, he is speaking on monetary policy. He is speaking on behalf of the Federal Reserve. He is speaking on behalf of the FOMC. He's speaking on behalf of the monetary policy in general from every single person's point of view. But when the individual governors come out, when Waller comes out, when John Williams comes out, when Michelle Bowman comes out, right? When Lisa Cook comes out, like all these different voting members of the FOMC, when all these different people come out and they start speaking, that's their own personal opinion and it does not reflect the Federal Reserve's opinion or the FOMC's opinion. You see the difference here? It's like literally, pow, let's shoot the messenger because we do not like what he says. And then get another messenger who says the exact same thing. Because he is delivering a message based on the voting members of the FOMC. That's it. That's his job. So why would you want to replace him? I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense at all. Does not change a thing about anything that's going on out there. And anybody who says anything different than that has no clue about the voting members of the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee. Right? Those are the people who are in charge of monetary policy. Powell speaks on their behalf. That's it. End of story. Right? Do you think y'all think he's doing genius work? Who says that? I mean, his stage presence? Whoa, bro. Yeah, that's genius work up there. I mean, if you're asking me on that sense, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the policies, no. I mean, but his work on stage, when he's up there on stage, man, bro, there ain't nobody. Ain't nobody. That dude's an elitist on that, right? His stage presence is commanding. It's demanding. People listen. It's unreal. It's unreal, right? I mean, his policies, I don't know, like that part of it, I think is all just propaganda anyway, and it's all about pushing the credible threat theory. And so when you start looking into monetary policy and following that and take the mainstream media information as nothing more than crap, right? Because that's all it really is. And you start diving into the real issues like dollar funding stresses in China, and you start doing that sort of research, then you can look at that and you can say, I think he's actually trying to push some misinformation on purpose in order to guide the monetary policy into a particular direction because the Federal Reserve is looking for elevated inflation expectations to raise the neutral interest rate, and this would totally do it. I mean, that's just me. I don't know what else anybody else is saying, but that's what I see from the monetary policy itself from the Federal Reserve. All right. YouTube censorship is real. Yeah, and and for me, like I see other people complain about it in an extreme fashion, and I'm like, wow, man, you spread some information that gets you banned and gets you censored. Like I've been demonetized. That's like the harshest thing, and then the algorithm will fall, right? Because if you're not monetized, why would YouTube want to spread your stuff around, right? They want to make as much money as you do. So if you don't monetize your stuff, the algorithm doesn't like you anyway. And if you go and make something that gets demonetized, then you really lose attention. And I have two topics that this is the only two topics that I have found that actually get me demonetized. And it is like so far from something that I believe would be like not ad friendly, not ad partner friendly. It is so far from that I don't even want to mention it, right? Because that's how much I think the algorithm looks for it in my videos, and then will shut my videos down. And not really shut them down. They just kill the algorithm, kill the monetization, kill all that other stuff, and then it's like, it's just a pointless video at that point because it doesn't get shown. So that's the only thing that happens to me. But I see other people who they talk about some wild stuff and it happens to them. I never, like all the stuff that I have ever brought up and talked about or whatever, doesn't matter. Two very simple topics and I get nailed. And I don't know why, And so I just don't talk about them much. I'm missing the dice. Yeah, should I go get them out of the Suburban? You guys, type yes if you want me to go get the dice out of the Suburban. It's just right there, so I'll just take a second. All right. What are the two things can someone add it in the chat? Yeah, go ahead and put it in the chat. I don't care if you guys do that. In fact, go ahead, you guys. No, don't go get the dice. Give me 1 second. You guys talk about what it is that I'm not supposed to talk about. I know it's real important to have the dice because a lot of you are doing your numerology and stuff from them. So there you go. Here, let me give it a spin too. Yes, we need the dice. All right. All right. Ripple, but Goliath Company offshore for the first time. U.S. banks are allowed in the game. Snake eyes on the economy. So what's going on? Go get the dice. What a rock star. All right. The information doesn't change. The meaning behind it is up to you, uneducated economist. That's right. That's exactly right. And I mean, I hope people really think about that for just a minute, because really it comes down to everything is neutral. I'm not talking neutral or interest rates or anything. I'm talking about everything in the world is a neutral. Everything, literally everything. Right? There is no internal meaning behind it other than the meaning that you're going to give it. And so understanding that you can give meaning to anything for any reason, and it doesn't have to be the meaning that you're giving it. It can be any meaning. Okay? Most people end up giving it a meaning, and then it ends up hurting them in a way that, if they just changed the way they looked at it. And I know that's difficult because most people look at things as just a simple, this is the way it is. Boom, that's it. There is no other meaning other than this meaning that happens to it. And I know it's an extreme way of looking at it. And really, I should probably find a different analogy, but I think it just works so well. Think of a terrorist attack, right? To us, the meaning behind it is just atrocious and horrible and just an evil intent and all this other stuff, and we cannot possibly see it any other way. To somebody else, it was a religious experience. Right? That's hard to internalize, but that's literally it. The actual attack itself becomes a neutral. That's what's so beyond it, is just like, no, people die and destruction and all this other stuff. But if we can give it a meaning of evil and somebody else gives it a meaning of a religious experience, right? Then what is the hidden meaning behind it other than the one that we're given it? There is no meaning. And that's, I know that's difficult to internalize and swallow, but that's the truth of it in anything that is existing at any given time. All right. All right. BRICS payment system went live yesterday to compete with SWIFT. Yeah, and it's going to continue. And you're going to see a lot of that. But, I mean, just, we have to understand. Like, think about why it is that the dollar even got to the position it is. People don't like it. No, I mean, think about it. Everybody hates it around the world. They all have this issue with it. Nobody likes it. Why? Hyper boring baby. Thank you for the $4. Appreciate it. Why do people not like it? Why do people want to get out of this dollar? Why are they so upset with it? Right? Why is it they're even using it in the first place? Why? Right? You ask all these questions. Well, let's just think about some of the economic forces that are at play. And then once we internalize the economic forces, then we don't have to ask why anymore. We know why. It's just because it's being forced into place. We can make a decision. I mean, make a decision right now. Make a decision to be on the gold standard yourself. Dump all your cash, dump all your dollar-denominated assets, and get into gold. You're in the gold standard. Your economy is a gold standard. You don't have to wait for everybody else. You don't have to force a government to make a decision to force everybody else to do a gold standard. You can do the gold standard right now, right? So you make the choice to use dollars, just like I'm making the choice to work for dollars, just like I'm making the choice to take out dollar-denominated debt, and I'm making to buy this house, and I'm making the choice to continue on doing this operation. I'm choosing to do this. There is nobody out there that's forcing me. It feels forced because I don't feel like there's a whole lot of other choices that I could be making right now in order to do something else to have this sort of existence. So it does feel like it's a forced decision, but it's still my choice. I don't have to accept this. You don't have to accept it. Nobody has to accept anything that we're doing here. We're choosing to do it. Whether we feel forced into it or not, it's still our choice. So now we look back to why it is that the dollar even came into an existence is because we were choosing to do transactions. Now, it wasn't you and me. It was people who were a long time ago, people who are dead and gone now. They don't even have anything to do with it. They created a power pendulum that none of those people even exist anymore, but now the power pendulum still swings. Understanding that is not something that you can stop. Like, you can stop, go get on the gold standard. You and your neighbor and everybody that you know get on the gold standard, do deals with each other, and figure out how it is that you're going to work it. It's going to be very difficult because everybody else fell into the power pendulum back in the day saying, I want to do transactions. There's not enough gold out here, and the people who were the most industrious people ended up hoarding on to all that gold. And now we don't have any ability to do transactions because the thing that we were using to do transactions with, you guys have hoarded. So what is it that we're going to use to do transactions with? And out comes the paper. This is like, I don't like this paper. Nobody likes paper. What does this mean? Thing's going to fail. Yeah, do you want to eat? Sure do. Do you want to do transaction? Yeah, better use the paper. Okay. They made the decision. They wanted to eat. They wanted to do transactions. They didn't like the paper. They wanted the gold. But the gold was being hoarded. Yeah. So now they're using dollars. They didn't want to do it then. Right? So just because they don't want to do it now doesn't make it any different. That's what I'm kind of getting at. It was just like people say, oh, they don't like using the dollars. They want to get out of the dollars. It's like they didn't like using dollars back then either. They chose to do it because they wanted to eat and there was nothing else. Just like there isn't anything else today. You can't print up a bunch of BRICS nations currency because there's not enough trust and value inside of the debt issuance coming out of those nations in order to match what it is that the United States is doing. That it cannot be dealt with in any other fashion other than complete failure of the dollar, which means no value to it whatsoever. Nobody's using it. Might as well set it on fire. Not happening today. Doubt it'll happen tomorrow. Right? Or one of those BRICS nations is going to have to not want to be a producing, saving nation. They're going to want to be a debtor consuming nation, and they're going to have to do it to the level that the United States is doing. And without a military force to protect the shipping channels, I doubt that they're ever going to do anything that could even come close to what the United States is doing. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't even give it any kind of real thought because I know how powerful the dollar is, considering that it doesn't have any value to it. It doesn't really have any confidence. It doesn't have any love. It never really has. And yet here it is, more prominent than it ever's been. Why? Because we all want to eat. We all want to do transactions. That's it. That's all there is to it. And then once you recognize that it's nothing more than a currency, and it's not meant to hold value, and it's just meant to trade goods and services for other goods and services, then you don't give it any kind of appreciation for any kind of value of that. Like saying that it should hold value. You don't even care that it doesn't. It's like, yeah, why would it? It's currency. I mean, if you want it to hold value, put it in money, like gold and silver, and to a lesser extent, like Bitcoin or something. Right? I mean, it's simple. It's like none of this stuff is difficult. But it is difficult to recognize what it is that's happened if you don't internalize the underlying economic forces. Gresham's law is going to state that a bad currency will always chase out a good currency. You're not going to introduce gold because anytime you introduce gold, if the dollar is still in existence, people will just say, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I will do a transaction in gold, yoink, and you'll never see that gold again. It'll get hoarded away. That's Gresham's law. It goes back to the 1500s. Right? That's not something that's just like some guy was thinking about. It's just like, well, I don't know, maybe. Right? No, it's something that was proven time and time and time again. You can create all the, legal tender laws you want. It doesn't take away the underlying economic force that gold is still this better currency. And if you have a lesser currency involved, people are going to hoard the gold and put the lesser currency into play. It's just the way it goes. Same thing with all the rest of the economic forces out there. Triffin's dilemma. Right? How is it, as the custodian of the world reserve currency, how is it that you're going to get those dollars out there to the rest of the world? It's very difficult. If you have a position in which that the demand for dollars is so big outside of the United States, how do you export the dollars? Well, the easiest way is to buy their stuff. Be a consumer. Consuming production of the world and exporting dollars. Like, look it up. Triffin's dilemma, Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, the bullwhip effect, and Cantillon effect. Right? You read those, you study up on them, you internalize those things. All the noise almost fades away. It's like you don't even hear the noise anymore, and you see right through the horse shit. You do. It's just like you don't all these economists out there talking, oh, this is what's going to happen. The BRICS nations are going to take over. And it was just like, can you explain how it is that they're going to match over Gresham's law when it comes to the gold standard being returned? Can you explain that? Because all these people talking about how they're going to rise of a gold standard. And I'm like, no, not even. That would be like impossible. It would literally be impossible because the moment that you put a gold coin out there, I'm going to be like, give me that. Thank you. And then you'll never see that gold coin again. All right. So long as there's some other currency out there in existence, the bad currency will chase out the good every single time. Let's go check out this other super chat from William G. Atheist, man. I love it, dude. I love the conversations we have, bro, because you're always constantly challenging me, man. This is good. All right, Simon, on a scale of 1 to 10 being high, how much do you trust Trump's policies? I don't believe any of the policies that are happening out there other than the ones that I have expressed through the credible threat theory. Everything else is noise. Everything else is about pushing. Like, think about this. Trump's policies, tariff on day one, tariff in 30 days, tariff on the liberation day, tariff on the 9s, tariff in 90 days, tariffs possibly after an extension of negotiations and flexibilities. What policy? What policy? Other than the ones of confusion, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, pushing a credible threat theory of higher inflation through tariffs, that policy, I think, is working swimmingly. If the policy is to push inflation expectations higher with the credible threat of tariffs, it's working. But that's it. That's the only thing. All the rest of the idea, as far as fixing the economy and bringing jobs back and all that other stuff, no, I'm not even like, that stuff is a waste of time. Absolute waste of time. And why do I call it a waste of time? Is because I have extensively studied Cantillon essay on economic theory, talking about the increase and decrease of money to the state and how it is that a luxurious experience and a luxurious lifestyle will drive out the domestic manufacturers and ever increasing amounts of foreign production will come in. And that is the position that we have now taken. There is no reversal of that. The reversal of that is pain and suffering. So if you want to see a boot on the face of humanity to fix it, and you think that Trump is going to fix it, that's what it's going to be fixing it. That's why it's like, I don't believe it. I just don't believe that his policies are anything remotely close to doing something like that. All right? I mean, I do not think that Trump is going to put a boot down on the face of humanity to fix it, because that's what it would take. So since I don't believe that to be the case, I believe it's a credible threat theory to push the inflationary expectations ever higher, to raise the neutral interest rate so that the Federal Reserve could actually have some ammunition for stimulating the economy. When they lower the Fed funds rate back down to the lower bound, they will actually have some position below the neutral interest rate to stimulate the economy. That is what I believe. I've said it over and over again for years, and I'm not going to deviate from it, because that's what's happening, period. Over and over again, I've talked about it, showed it, and shared with you how it is that has taken place. Through many speeches, many positions of many different Fed officials, everywhere, right? It's just like, I have not deviated from that. And I don't believe that Trump is going to all of a sudden fix things in a way that is going to be like having these wonderful manufacturing jobs where one income can produce enough for an entire household, because that doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't. Your luxurious way of life is too expensive. There is somebody out there in the world who is willing to sleep on the ground and produce the same thing that you're doing. That's that, right? You better hope and dream and pray that they figure out a way to produce a consumer here in this country. Otherwise, our luxurious way of life is going to deteriorate. That's the only way. It's the only way. And I don't want to be some negative Nancy, whatever, Debbie Downer. I don't know how you, like, what was it on that damn, Saturday Night Live episode, or everything, like, everything is just catastrophic and horrible or whatever. But that's the truth of the matter. It's just understanding that position is much easier than then figure out what it is you need to do to deal with it. All right? Like, I'm buying a house. I'm raising my wife and I are raising kids. We are doing this with no college education in one of the most expensive places in the entire country to do it. Think about this. I am proving that the American dream is attainable, and it's not happening through a single income. I guarantee you it won't. The American dream of a single income producing enough for the entire household is gone. That does not exist. There is no point in even believing that it can come back. But it doesn't mean that you still can't do it. There are so many ways of making money nowadays that it's just unreal. Like, I am not a smart dude. I use my cell phone for everything. Like, this computer is literally nothing more than for accessing the internet and downloading a file. That is all I use this thing for. And yet here it is, with no college education, no real family money, finances, business to speak of or anything. We're here pulling it off. So think about that for just a minute. Like, there is no returning to the way that it was. Like, the grand illusion of having good manufacturing jobs here in the United States is just, I can't even try to begin to describe how delusional of a belief this is. You can bring the jobs back, but you're not going to be able to compete in a way that says, yeah, these good jobs are enough to produce for an entire household again. Like, we're not returning. It might be a good job, but you're going to have a good job, a YouTube channel, a side hustle. Your wife's going to have to work, right? And then maybe you can buy a house because that's what I'm doing, right? And that ain't going to change. I have to put out so much effort in order to acquire and do something like this, and most people just don't even see or could even possibly imagine themselves putting that much time and effort into anything in their lives in order to acquire the things that they need, because it's literally everything. Right? Everything. Constant. All the time. Every single avenue I can. I don't think you guys realize how much time I put into doing the things that I do. Literally, it feels like I come out here to do the live stream, feels like the break. Let's continue on. Let's talk more about monetary policy or dollar funding stresses in China. Unfunded liabilities is far bigger threat to the U.S. existence, 220 plus trillion. I hear that a lot, and I've thought about that a lot too, and I've heard it since I was a kid, like how this unsustainable debt is this constant, and I agree. Like, how does that look when you go into negative interest rates with the central bank digital currency? Can we incorporate that into the theory too? Because who knows? I know it's unsustainable. I know that it can't continue on. But then again, I also knew at one point there was no way that you could have negative interest rates. Well, that's certainly changed. Guy Forks. Russia have launched CBDC. Looks like they are all working together to bring it in worldwide. What do you think? I think eventually everything will be digital and there'll be no cash in the system. But essentially that's for bringing in a negative interest rates. And of course there will be the tax tracing and, tracking and all the other stuff that goes with it. Maybe even time limits and, quarantine to where the currency can go or something like that. There's all kinds of ways that you can spin on it. And I believe that those things are happening, but ultimately the idea behind it is to get cash out of the system and then take interest rates into negative territory. At this point, I don't think they're that concerned about taking it to that point, although there will be a moment in the future, and I couldn't tell you when that's going to happen, that will be the case, and that they will want to take interest rates into negative territory, and that they will want to have cash out of the system. But I couldn't tell you when that's going to happen. And it would be a very difficult task at this point, considering how much cash is still in the system and how much cash is still going into the system. It's like that's not something that's going to be easily transitioned out of. Test users, $10. Thank you so much. What's the end game? I was asked that question. I don't know. It might have been you who asked in the comment section, I think, of yesterday's video. QE infinity, modern monetary theory. Does it break at some point? Now, the end game, this is something that I thought was kind of an interesting one to try and think about, because is there really does there absolutely have to be an end game to this? I don't is there a moment in which they're we did it, project completed, right? I don't think so. I think it's just an ever evolving constant thing. I don't think there is an end to it. I don't think there's an end game. I believe that there's people out there who would theorize through maybe New World Order kind of concepts or government rule or something of that nature to have an end game of total government control of the entire population of the entire globe or something like that, being an end game kind of thing. And if you want to, dive into that kind of conspiratorial mindset, it's not really something that I dig into anymore, because ultimately that is a depressive thought of the future that will literally lead you to that outcome where you will be basically suffering and pain and misery, because that's what you're thinking about is the New World Order and government rule and how it is that they're going to destroy your life. And then basically your thoughts and actions will manifest that reality for you. So again, I don't think of an end game. I just think of what it is that's happening out there so that I can make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself, because I own my own economy. Like, I have to. I can't rely on somebody else to make a good decision for me or make the best decision that's going to happen in government that's going to work out best for me, because most likely they're not going to. And I'm pretty sure of that, because, there's how many millions and hundreds of billions of people on the planet. There's no way that they can make a decision that's going to be awesome for everybody. So instead, I don't expect them to, and then I just make awesome decisions for myself and just kind of go with that. I don't expect them to do anything right. I don't expect an end game. I don't expect a new world order takeover. I don't expect any of that stuff. People are worried about, like, government coming down on them and taking everything they own, and they'll own nothing and be happy. And I think to myself, I don't really own that much stuff, so I don't know what you're going to take. It's just like, I mean, what do you want, the Suburban or something? Like, I don't know what you're going to take from me. I don't have anything. That's what I laugh about it. It's like, I'm working on this house. It'd be sucking to lose that, or something of that nature. But, in the grand scheme of things, I just don't have that much. I just don't care. Like, I've never really cared about material possessions that much. I much rather enjoy the scenery, the people, the experience, all that other stuff, right? But the material part of things, if you'll own nothing, I was just like, that's not that scary to me. Maybe it's scary to somebody else who's materialistic and needs a lot of stuff in their life. I don't care. That doesn't hurt me, right? And people are like, oh no, give it this meaning, because here's all this frightening stuff that means, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take it in. I do whatever the hell I want. I buy whatever I want. I go wherever I want. I say whatever I want, except for two different topics that seem to be very sensitive to YouTube, right? But I don't censor myself from anything out there, or my experiences, or anything else. Right? The whole world is open for me to have whatever it is that I want, and I just don't really want that much, which makes it pretty easy. It's like, like, I want to pay my bills on time. That's what I want. It would be nice to have a decent retirement. Okay, I'm done with my wants. I mean, that's like super, super short list. William again, $5. F. Chappell said it best. I want to wear Nikes, not make them. If you can't make it in if you can't make it in you can't make it anywhere. In North America? Yeah. Not sure. I appreciate the super chat, brother. The end game is you to work. The end game is, well, yeah, duh. I mean, that's the whole thing. All right, no one has posted the two things. Okay, Beloved got one of them there. All right, I'm gonna cruise back down to the bottom. Okay, the passing of DEFI in the Senate was very significant milestone. Okay, this young went in the car drudgery. Oh, is there any questions going on? All right, I'm more into cash in the moment, and thank goodness, because that drop in the market scared a bunch of people. All right. Yeah, I'm not reading. Okay, Lynn Alden has 3 videos of yesterday. I will watch Monetary Markets 1. Yeah, Lynn Alden's pretty cool. I've got to meet her a couple of times. Do you think the dollar will collapse? No. I mean, it will eventually at some point. I mean, you can't, like that. I mean, but like when? Like, are you looking for the dollar collapse, like, on its way down now? Like, a lot of people were saying that 4 years ago as COVID was taking off. They were like, dollar's done. You just watch and see. You're going to be eating your words when you're, lost everything, and, everybody's crying their eyes out and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't think the dollar's going to fail next year, and I don't think it's going to happen the year after that, or the year after that, or the year after that. I mean, if you're talking when the dollar collapses, it's probably going to be far beyond our lifetime. You think about it, if there's a way, not if, when the way of taking the dollar to a digital currency, whether it's through stablecoin issuance or central bank digital currency issuance or something of that nature, Fed coin kind of thing. They would have to change the way the charter is written in order for like a Fed coin, but they can certainly do a stable coin, like they're already doing the stable coin, regulated through government, back the stable coin with dollars coming from the Federal Reserve's liabilities, like the Federal Reserve's liabilities, and then the Fed dollar monetary policy would transfer right into the stable coins. They really could do this pretty easily, like without a whole lot of like changes to the laws, except for maybe the regulation of the stable coins. At that point, who knows what monetary policy could look like? If you could take interest rates negative, then ultimately, if you can continue into negative, there is no collapse. There is no collapse of the dollar. The collapse comes from a loss of faith and belief, confidence. People don't want to use the dollars now. They didn't want to use them when they started using them. Like they've never wanted the dollar. Never once in the history of time has anybody ever appreciated the fact that the Federal Reserve was printing dollars. Never. Here it is, as strong as ever. China is dollar-denominated debt deep, right? They need it just as much as everybody else. I don't believe that there is a dollar collapse anytime soon. It will happen at some point. But it's not like there's nothing on the horizon that says, man, you gotta prepare for it today. Because had you done that when they were saying that with COVID 4 years ago, you would have missed out on all kinds of opportunities. I mean, I don't know how many people told me that I was going to be crying my eyes out on account of this house. Do you realize that I have over $130,000 in equity in this house right now? In 3 years? That's stupid ridiculous. That shouldn't have happened. Right? I mean, granted, I put $42,000 down on the house. Right? It was everything I had at the time. Left me with $300 in my bank account. But since then, the value of the house, the ZELLE estimate in this area has gone ridiculous. It's stupid expensive now. There's no way I could buy a house in my area today. Even with everything I got going on, I would literally have to move right now from this area. So I am very thankful at the time that I bought the house. I didn't know that it was the right timing. I thought it was actually the wrong timing. I thought I was going to be upside down and underwater. And, you know, I believed all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt and shit coming from the people out there. You know, and I mean, I thought once interest rates go up, then house prices are going to come down. It just all made sense. It didn't happen. It went completely the other way around. I had to back up and say, okay, think about this again, man. If you do not have a situation in which the house prices come down, even if you can't make your payment, you just sell the house. Or even better yet, rent it out because rents are so damn high. See, back in the day in the great financial crisis, which is what I thought was going to happen, was something similar to that. There was a whole bunch of people who had borrowed for houses that they were never going to pay. Ever. Right? And they had a lot of them. And they were building massive amounts of them. That whole scenario is not taking place today. And I had to think about that, dude. Why didn't you like take a bigger picture of it instead of being so hyper-focused on yourself? Yeah. And that was my problem at the time because, you know, shit, I mean, this was my whole life I was like throwing out up in the air there, you know? All right, moving on. Thank you, everybody, for being here. 728 people, or 782 people with 358 likes. Go continue to hit that like button. Let's get it up to 400 or 500 likes and see if this algorithm will grab this video up to 1,000 people. That would be awesome to see going right now. Right, what rate did you borrow at? I got it at 3.125. Educate yourself properly. Well, and see, this is the funny thing about it is that, you know, even at the time, I had no other choice, but I was looking at everything that I had going on in my life, and I thought to myself, okay, based on what it is that you got, what you have, where the position that you're in, you can do this. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't want it to look like this. I want it to look a different way. I want it to be different from this. This is not the way that I had envisioned it. In fact, it was so far off from what it is that I was thinking was supposed to take place that I actually looked at what it was that I was buying and realized it was exactly what I had envisioned. I didn't even know it. We talked about having enough room in the backyard to have chickens. There was a shed back there that was easily converted into a chicken coop. My boy says, I would love to have a big front yard. I have the biggest front yard you can imagine. In fact, it's raining today. It bummed me out because I was going to mow today, so it means that I have to mow tomorrow, and it's going to be that much longer. It's huge. It's a huge front yard. It was exactly the house that I had envisioned and manifested into my reality, and I was trying to prevent it from happening. Like literally, it was so strange. It was exactly what it was that we were looking for, but yet I didn't see it at the time because my ego was so much different, looking that it needed to go down so much differently than it was. I needed to buy it at the bottom of the housing market when everybody was crying their eyes out. Buy low, sell high, buy when there's blood in the streets, right? That was my mentality towards it. I bought this house and it went completely the opposite direction of where I thought it was going to go. Right? See, sometimes your ego gets in the way of a lot of stuff, and sometimes you can't even, prevent it. Like your ego is like, I don't want this, whatever. I'm gonna cry my eyes out, and then you end up with it, and it's just like, well, shit, this ain't so bad. Yeah, right. Luis, thank you so much for the $10. It says, what are your thoughts on UBI in the future? Do you see a world where AI and technology reduces the need for labor so we can enjoy higher quality of life, standard of living? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if you're living in the United States, but we already enjoy a pretty high standard of living here. Now, I think what you're looking for is a luxurious life where you don't have to work. Is that what you're kind of thinking of? Because we already have a pretty luxurious life here. I mean, think about it. There's some people in the world who really live in some serious poverty. UBI, I believe that is probably going to be the ultimate outcome. Eventually, will be a UBI type of uh, feature in the economy where they will be attempting to produce a consumer. And by producing a consumer, it's literally so that we can keep the flow of material coming from foreign producers so that they will continue to buy our US Treasury debt assets. So basically, they buy our debt, we buy their stuff. Now, in that case, we have a debt saturated consumer here. We have a consumer that's burdened. We have a huge separation and inequality, and this is making it very difficult to continue to produce a consumer. See, when we had a strong middle class, it was fairly easy. You just lower interest rates or just make the economic condition a little bit more like approving for like corporate investment, because like when you have like business investment taking place, then you have a position in which that more employment can happen. More employment is more consuming, and more consuming is the ultimate outcome that they would be looking for, increasing of aggregate demand. But there's a problem that we now face here is that the inequality has grown so much. We don't have that strong middle class, so lowering interest rates doesn't really get a bunch of people out there to borrow the money to go out there and buy houses, cars, go on vacation, and it doesn't really spark a whole lot of business investment to bring in employment since we already have low unemployment. None of that stuff is really working in the same fashion it did. So how do you stimulate aggregate demand when you can't really like get a bunch of companies out there to go on a hiring spree to increase like to lower the unemployment and increase employment within the economy to get those people buying, right? More people working, more people spending. So this is the situation we're in, right? This huge wedge of inequality, everybody living down at the lower end are debt saturated. So even lowering interest rates doesn't get them moving, right? Increasing aggregate demand through the unemployment doesn't really help since we have low unemployment. So this is where they're kind of stuck in a position. It was just like, well, go at it, consumer, and go get some, right? And how do you do that? Like you can't get them to go to work because they're already working or low unemployment, and you can't really get them to borrow that much more money because they're already debt saturated. So you're stuck. Now you can just force feed money into them. You can be like, here, take this money and go spend it, right? Because that's ultimately what they're looking for is to increase aggregate demand. Aggregate demand comes from consumption. So if you can't get them to go borrow the money, and providing them with more work doesn't do anything because they're already working essentially or have low unemployment, there's really nothing you can do except for a UBI kind of application. So I see that happening at some point going into the future. The only issue that I'm taking with this, as far as like if this was to happen, and I don't like doing the what ifs, but if this was to happen, you're going to find a dramatic rocket ship I mean, if you thought that the direction of inequality and the speed in which it's happening now was bad, you're going to talk about it going on to like nitrous oxide kind of fast, man. It's going to be like off the charts. So government rules going to come in with like, hey, well, we'll tax the hell out of the rich, and then of course the rich will figure out ways to not pay the taxes, and you will find that the inequality will be incredible, like in ridiculously bad. Getting on the other side of the wedge will be a very difficult task. Some people will figure it out. Like they will be like, oh, I'm going to work and live a life that is incredibly meager, take all this extra money that's coming, and I'm going to deploy it into capital investments and property ownership, and those people will separate themselves. Right? But that's the problem that we'll end up facing, is that the more new money that you bring in, if you bring in new money, what you are doing is bringing in new money. The people who have first access to it will spend it on luxurious experiences. Even if you hand it to the people first, the lower end first, they will spend it on luxurious experiences, and then it'll go right up to the top. That money will. They'll buy stuff. They will buy places, but the money will float right up to the top, and they won't have it anymore because they'll spend it. They'll just blow it. Blue. Some, they'll be smart. Some will. Right? And they'll put themselves on the other side of the wedge by investing, like keeping their expenses very low, keeping their, everything really low, and then move up on the ladder through property investment or capital deployment. All right. Wow, this is a great stream, guys. Thank you all for being here. 746 people. I see that thumbs up is getting hit. 407 people who have hit the thumbs up button. Continue to hit that thumbs up button. Let's get this algorithm spreading it around more. We got $62 in super chats. You guys are awesome. Lots of Canadians. I see a lot of Canadian people have contributed to the Uneducated Economist. Simon, I think you would be interested in to read the April 9th, 2025 banking speech from Jan Freight, Monetary Policy Analysis at the Crossroads. What is it? Freight? FR Freight. Czech's National Bank monetary speech. Let me see if I can find it here. April 9th. Jan Freight, monetary speech, April 9th, 2025. Huh, I don't find it here, but I'll look for it, I guess. I don't see it coming up. All right, do you have any thoughts on the recent push for wealth tax? A movement has started in UK with recent prominence of ex-Citibank trader Gary Stevens. Wealth tax? What would that entail? Like, what's the details of a wealth tax? Like taxing, like, unrealized gains? The abstract investor, I love the name, man, $2 Canadian. Start at the paragraph in the summer of 2002. I see Jan Freight. I see one speech that came out, and this doesn't even look like it has her name. Or his name, or whatever. Monetary policy, great macro financial volatility, and the response of monetary theory in the first quarter of the 21st century. I don't think this is it. Oh no, it's Jan Freight. Is this what that I'm looking for? Is this the one? I only see one thing coming up on the internet. All right. Let's see. That's Oregon for you. What's Oregon for you? The rain? It's constant. All the time. Tariffs equal price stickiness equals numb economic activity. Are tariffs even true? Do you see anything in prices in the U.S.? No, I haven't seen, like, I work retail, like, for a living, right? I work at a retail hardware store where, like, most of our stuff comes from China or overseas or something of that nature. I live very close to the Canadian border. We have a lot of Canadian lumber here in my yard, and I don't see any reflection of it happening within retail prices. Now, the expectations of the people themselves, I find it very comical, in which that they have sort of the same attitude right now as they did during COVID. Like, you remember COVID had everybody, like, inflation expectations ripping off the charts, and they were all saying it's stuck on some, ship coming from China, and they couldn't get any supply, and there was, like, all this, fear and uncertainty and doubt. And every single time somebody would make a purchase of something from me at the store, they would be like, God, darn inflation, look at these prices moving. And I'm looking, and I would go and I would scan the item and do a quick recall, because I can go through my past invoices to see how much those things we were charging for years ago. I can go back to receipts 10 years ago if I wanted, or even more. And so I'm looking at some of these past receipts of sales that we had done on a particular item, and, like, it went from, like, $7.49 to $7.99, or maybe even, like, $8.09 or something like that. These numbers, although it was, like, massive, I'm thinking, well, this is over the course of, like, 10 years. Yeah. And although the prices have moved up, they hadn't moved up dramatically, and in some cases people were saying that about prices on items that didn't move at all. Like, they hadn't moved. It was still the same price that I had been charging for years. And so, granted, over the last couple of years, it's very difficult to find any item that hadn't moved up in price. Like, just about every single thing, including the one thing that took forever, which I thought wouldn't be the case, was that 15-pound felt, which is a building paper that hardly anybody uses anymore, because everybody uses synthetic products in different, house wrap drain or vapor barriers for house wraps. But this 15-pound felt still exists, and it was $30 for the longest time. And now it's up to about $38, I guess, $39. So it did increase quite a bit, but it took forever, and it was way after all the inflation that everybody had experienced. Lumber, none. No inflation in lumber. Gone. Absolutely disappeared. Been gone for a very long time. Even the credible threat of 25% lumber tariffs was able to push the lumber futures higher than what I had anticipated they would go from a credible threat, but it got close to 700 per thousand, right? 670 or something of that nature, which is higher than it was back in 2018, which it peaked out at around 650 per thousand. Interesting part about it, soon as the credible threat of lumber tariffs had vanished, lumber tariffs had been exempted from the 25% across the board on all products coming from Canada and Mexico. When they exempted lumber from all that stuff, what do we see end up happening? Lumber futures dropped dramatically as the speculation just essentially evaporated from it, only to have a couple of days later to have the countervailing anti-dumping duty of 35% be reapplied to the lumber. Crickets. Literally nobody's talking about it. I asked everybody at work, nobody heard about it, right? I showed them the articles, I showed them where it was taking place. Nobody knew that it was happening. Still, very few people are actually understanding that there was this countervailing anti-dumping duty that was applied to lumber, but yet it was old news, not communicated within the mainstream media. The only thing the mainstream media talked about was the credible threat of tariffs, right? But they weren't talking about the anti-dumping countervailing duties. They were just talking about this credible threat coming from Donald Trump's, 25% tariff thing. Turned out to just essentially vanish. The countervailing anti-dumping duty is still in place, but nobody knows about it. And it had been there for a while. right? All the speculation's fallen out of it. Lumber prices dropped again. They're down under 600 per thousand now. Like what are they? Five something, 570. I don't even know where they're at. Right? But they're not elevated. And so to me, I'm like, why is it that the idea of a 25% tariff on lumber has everybody in the news and talking about $10,000 increase to the cost of building a home and all this speculation and ideas and bullshit that went into it? I gotta stop cussing. And all this crap that went into it just literally evaporated, gone. But the reality of the situation that is taking place, that has been communicated, nobody, no sound of it. It's like, listen, nothing, not a thing. So it's obvious to me. Like, it's obvious to me that the mainstream media propaganda machine works in a particular way. They are trying to deliver particular information. They are treating the people with information. That's literally a term that they have used. Treatment. Let's read some of the more of these super chats here. Do you think that the U.S. is trying to lock out China from a system because they are trying to take place of the top consuming economy, or other reasons? No, China is not trying to take the position of a top consuming economy. They are wanting to be a producer saver nation. They produce stuff, sell it to the world sends them money. We, on the other hand, are a consuming nation. We produce debt, sell debt to the world, and consume products, right? Totally different type of economy. If they want to be a position in which that they want to be a consumer, then what they would have to do is they would have to issue out debt to the level that the United States has done. Nobody wants to buy Chinese debt. Nobody trusts China enough to buy that much debt off of them. Like, literally, you would have to provide them with a safe and liquid asset like the U.S. Treasury. Nobody's going to trust China to do that. And you would have to do it to the level that the United States has done. China doesn't want to go down that road. They're already suffering with a debt debacle problem and watching deflationary pressures hitting them in a dramatic fashion. That's not the position that they want to be in. They want to be a producer saver, right? They want people buying their stuff and sending them their money. That's what China wants. They don't want to compete against the United States. Like, not in that fashion, not as a consumer. That's what these two, I know it doesn't sound right to say it out loud. It doesn't intuitively, it doesn't make sense when you're trying to put it that way. But when you think about it, at the bottom line, these two nations, the United States and China, are both sitting in a position in which that they need an elevated inflation expectation. They need it. Not like they would like to have it or it would be good. They need it. They need it. They need it. They need it. Especially China. China's like suffering a deflationary nightmare. They need inflation bad. All right? They need it bad. The United States is, we've already discussed it, going for moderately above 2% for some time. They are looking for elevated inflation expectation as well. These two are looking for the exact same thing. Now, all the communication, all the fighting, all the politics, all the whirlwind of crap that goes with it, that is very confusing, and it's very detailed, and it's very important in a lot of ways, but ultimately at the end of the day, these two are looking for the exact same thing. So they're fighting about tariffs and pushing the inflation expectations ever higher. This is an attempt. Think about it, they're working symbiotically. Like, this is like the two of them are essentially doing the same thing. They're working in lockstep together. I'll tell my people tariffs, you tell your people tariffs, and we'll put fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and the belief of tariffs causing higher inflation expectations, and hopefully that will lead into an inflationary scenario. It's not really working here in the United States. We saw the CPI come down. Opposite. Looks like my door is leaking right here. That's weird. All right. Is there another super chat down there? We got almost $73 in super chats. This is incredible. All right, let me go. Where was that last one at? We already read that one. Did I get all of them? Oh, here we go. Start at the paragraph in the summer of 2002. Oh, we already read that one. All right, cool. Simon, here's the article Nick mentioned. Okay. Well, I can't click on that now. but maybe I'll go back and find it. It says BIS review, and it has a PDF file. Maybe email it to me or something. So why is China looking for an elevated inflation rate? Because they have a deflationary. Just Google like deflation in China right now. Right? So I mean, think about it. If you have a deflationary, how bad is it for a central banker to deal with inflation? Not a problem, right? I mean, it is when they allow like a hyperinflation scenario to get out of control, like, a Zimbabwe moment or Weimar Republic or something of that nature. But when you have a central banker who is operating at the lower bound of zero, which means their Fed funds rate is zero, low interest rates, the return on capital investment is essentially gone negative. This is a deflationary scenario that they can't overcome. Like literally, if your capital investment has a negative return, then that's like literally operating at a deflationary concept that it's like you can't get out of. To make more sense of that, if you think about high interest rates being good and low interest rates being bad, it's like almost opposite of how most people look at the economy nowadays. But if you can imagine yourself inheriting $1 million back in the early 80s and you put that $1 million towards government bonds, you would have had a return of around 15% yield, which would have been around $150,000 a year, which is really good for the early 80s. Like that's a lot of money you can put back into the economy with investments and spending on houses, cars, vacations, business, whatever. You're deploying a lot of money back into the economy because you have a high return on your capital investment. Now, if you have a return on your $1 million at a 2% yield or a 3% yield, you're getting $20,000, $30,000 a year. Like, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money, but for $1 million investment, $20,000 or $30,000 a year is really not that much money, right? Especially considering back in the early 80s, you would add $150,000 a year, right? So this is the difference inside of having a low return on capital investment in a low interest rate environment being a deflationary scenario, and that's a problem. Okay. So now most of the time when you think about it in this fashion, it's not actually expressed in that way. Or you have an issue that a central banker will not be able to stimulate the economy because they cannot lower interest rates any further than the lower bound of zero. And if you're operating at the lower bound of zero with a neutral interest rate that is also close to zero, monetary policy is essentially ineffective. Now, the only way to solve this problem is with an elevated inflation expectation. By elevating the inflation expectation, it will result in people's behavior of creating an inflationary scenario. Well, that's the idea behind it, that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if you elevate the inflation expectation, whether it's through reality of like a COVID pandemic and the shutting down of the economy and the stimulating of the people, or if you have a bunch of fear, uncertainty, and doubt through tariffs and the actions of tariffs that actually create an inflationary scenario, either way, the people's perception of what it is that's happening out there is critical to the concept of raising the inflation expectation to raise the neutral interest rate and the environment of an actual inflationary pressure. So this is what they're pushing for, right? Push the elevated inflation expectation ever higher, raise the neutral interest rate. And for China, it's literally to stop the deflationary spiral that they're going into. I mean, to me, I don't like that makes more sense than anything else. All right. Like, everybody was like, oh man, you don't see it right. These two are going to, do all these other things that are, which make a lot of sense when you when you read into it and you look at history and stuff. But what I think a lot of times people are describing, like the actions that these countries are taking, what they're describing is literally a symptom of the Cantillon effect. Right? The Cantillon effect is very simple, right? But the actions that countries take are very scary as far as war. They're overwhelming as far as some of the actions that they take and the people having to deal with some of those actions from it. But really what it comes down to is that the people themselves were industrious. They manufactured wonderful stuff. They incorporated, or they brought in a bunch of money. They increased their standard of living, raised their luxuries, started incorporating more foreign production into their lifestyle, exporting ever increasing amounts of their domestic manufacturing, until eventually, right, the new money stops pouring in and the whole system collapses. Now, I say it very simple, like within just a few seconds, but that's a complicated thing that the road goes down, and it takes a very long time. And so when we see the wars firing up, when we see the major actions taking place, when we see all this stuff, we're usually want to blame that as for creating the results. But really, this is economic forces at play, right? And then you can recognize them. And you don't blame anybody for it. You just say, yeah, it's kind of how they do it, and all right. 640 people still watching. Just amazing. $75 in super chats because you guys are always so supportive of the channel. 467 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. You talk about how production in the U.S. won't work due to luxuries. But if production was done by robots, won't it pass by these issues? Okay, so now let's think about it in this fashion. If we were making it out of robots, wouldn't that other country over there be able to do it out of robots as well? Right? And if they weren't doing it out of robots and they were doing it out of human labor, would the human labor be cheaper than the production of the robot itself? Let's just take the first example for just a minute and say that we have robots and they have robots. Right? Maybe our robots are better than their robots, right? Give it time, their robots will be the same as our robots, right? Maybe not at first. So let's think about it in a different fashion. Let's say they have equal robots and we have robots and we have stuff that we're making here in the United States and consuming for ourselves, and they have stuff that they're making, but they can't really sell it to anybody because they would have to sell it to the United States. Okay. Well, the United States would have to have money in order to buy that product from itself, and we get our money from the issuance of debt and selling it out there to the world. So ultimately, we wouldn't have new money coming in anyway. Right? Ah, crap, I'm losing my... Hold on, do I have it with me? Yeah. Hold on one second, guys. I knew my battery was going to be dying, so let me plug this thing in real quick. Okay, you're back. Oops. Okay, stay there. Don't fall. All right. So this gets kind of complicated to think about, but let's kind of give it just a simple production even playing field. Robots, human labor, okay? If the human labor doesn't compete because it's too expensive, here in the United States, we have a high standard of living, and they're sleeping on the dirt. Well, we'll remove that concept and include robots into the system. Right? So now we got robots both here and over there, and robots don't need to sleep on the ground and they don't need to live in a luxurious experience. So now we got production that's essentially equal, right? There and here, but it's not equal, right? It's not just the robot. It's the expense of the electricity. It's the environmental impact and the permitting of that. It's the transportation that comes along with it. See, if you're going to produce something, then you need to bring in new money, because if you don't bring in new money, then you're not going to have new money to buy the product that you're even producing yourself. So you're not going to be producing it unless you can sell it to somebody else. So this is important to understand. If you're going to be a producer of stuff, you have to have a customer who's going to buy your stuff, and it can't just be you, because you're a debt-based currency, which means that you have to find somebody to buy your debt, because that's really what you're producing, is more debt in a consumer. So what our economy will end up looking like is something of trying to compete against other nations out there who have the exact same technology, or eventually will have the same technology, and they're going to be able to produce it at a cheaper rate because they're going to have cheaper electricity somewhere in the world, right? And they're going to deal with the environmental impact in a way that we're not liking here, because we really don't want to produce stuff. What we want to do is produce a consumer. See, the idea of bringing a consumer back, or bringing the production back to the United States, would also come along with the idea that we want to sell that production to the world so that we can replace our debt issuance with new money coming in from our production. But the problem is that we don't produce stuff, we produce a consumer. I mean, you think about it. This country lives off the production of the world, and we send the world literally nothing in return. Like, we produce stuff and we sell it to the world. We produce agricultural products, we produce oil, we produce weaponry, we produce services, we produce a lot of stuff, right? But when it comes down to the trade deficit, we import more stuff than we export. And when we import stuff, we export fiat currency, which has no value to it other than an empty promise to pay into the future with more debt issuance. Like, how awesome of a life is that, that you can continue down that path? Of course, you're not going to be able to continue down it, but that's the life we're living right now. We get to live a luxurious life of the production of the world, and we send them a paper promise to pay with debt issuance into the future. Like, why would anybody want to change that? You know, like, changing that would mean that you would have to work way harder to have half the existence that you have. Is that something like, I mean, you know, to be honest, I like working hard. I like producing things. I like making money and stuff like that. But I also like my life. I like my life, right? And I don't want to have to work twice as hard for half as much. But that's really what it would have to do. There's no fixing this. This is the problem that I think a lot of times people want to try and, you know, put a theory behind, is like, you know, like, how do we fix it? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think there is a fixing it, because the fixing it is a painful experience, right? You know, nobody wants to lower their standard of living. Everybody wants to increase their standard of living. If you make it out of robots, you're still going to end up competing with electricity. You're going to end up competing with environment. You're going to end up competing with transportation. You're going to compete for other customers out there, right? The competition doesn't go away just because you bring a robot in. The economic forces don't change because you're trying to mask over it with, you know, concepts that have never existed before. Those economic forces are still there. They're still at play, and they will come back. You remove the tariffs, everybody's manufacturing job disappears immediately. Boom, right? Like, I mean, if it's tariffs that bring manufacturing back is what I guess I'm saying. You get tariff, manufacturing. You're like, okay, great. I got this wonderful American manufacturing job now. Essentially, without the government, you would lose it. So you're a government employee now, because without ever increasing amounts of government attention to tariffs, subsidies, or something, you remove all that, then your job snaps away, goes right over to a foreign producer almost immediately. All right? How do you want to position yourself? People are like, oh, we can have these great manufacturing jobs come back to the United States. And I'm thinking, yeah, and then you're going to live under government rule. Because the moment that they're not participating in it anymore, your job doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist now. It's not a viable position without government intervention and subsidies and tariffs. So what are you going to do? All right? Understand that we are in a position in which that debt issuance really is the only way, and producing a consumer, because that's our economy. There's no other economy. The Abstract Investor, $5. All right, emailed you, Gmail account, the speech with short section of it. Would love if you read it for us on this stream. Shit, I don't have access to my Gmail account on this computer here. I don't think I do. No, I don't. I don't think I do. No, because I have it at another one. Okay, send it to a different email account. Send it to uned1 at icloud.com. Let me see if I can get it over there. Do you really have to produce stuff to be happy and rich? Let the machines do it. Golden age, Elon, get you. No, you're missing it, though. You have to produce. You don't have to produce stuff to be happy and rich. The machines producing stuff have to have a customer to buy that stuff. All right? Otherwise, why would you produce the machine? Like, why would you produce the machine unless you're going to profit from it? Right? And if you build this machine and you build all these wonderful products and you're like, hey man, are you going to buy this? And they're like, I can't, my credit card's maxed out and I don't have any money. And it was just like, well, I'll just send it out of the United States. And they're like, nah, there's people out there who have the same robot and essentially have less electricity and cheaper, environmental laws. So you're not going to sell it to them either. Right? Like, I mean, we can imagine anything. We can, you know, come up with all kinds of what ifs and imaginations to it, but there's also underlying economic forces that we have to deal with. Well, I don't see it here, so. All right, what if we stop subsidizing 50 million? Well, all right. Let's not be accusatory or prejudiced or anything of this nature on the channel. Ultimately, the channel will lose all viewers, all attention, and all hopes of being caught on the algorithm by moving down that road. So let's not go down that conversation, okay? If you want to talk about that, go find another channel that talks about stuff like that. What is your recession prediction for 2025? 60% or more. All right. Remove laws that ban people from living in RVs. People need to be mobile to move to a job without paying crazy rent. Well, Julius Caesar, I would agree. That sounds wonderful, but since it's not being forced upon them to do that, they're making that decision based on the idea that there is a whole lot of people out there who are not looking for jobs, who are living in those things right there on the street, and they're making it very ugly for a lot of people, and rich people hate that, right? I mean, I know I live in a place where there is more homeless, there's less people living in homes than just about anywhere else in the nation. And the way that they deal with it is by throwing an insane amount of money at the problem, and it does not solve anything, right? The issues that we are facing is one to deal with the fact that we have a separation between the rich and the poor due to the fact that the insane amount of new money that comes into this area through retirement, through the idea of I don't know, I don't know why it is that people find this particular area so appealing that they move here with their they sell their, I guess it's probably because they sell a $2 million house in California and come up here and buy a $500,000 house that's twice the house that they had down there, and they get to live off the rest of that money, and then they get to dump that money here into our area, which actually creates the situation that we are now facing with the massive separation between the rich and the poor. Now, a lot of people call that gentrification, but really it's the Cantillon effect that's happening. It's new money coming into an area that causes it to take place. So if you want to ban people from, living in RVs and stuff like that, you're essentially, basically trying to get rid of a symptom, right? It's not the problem. You're never going to get, that's not the problem. The problem is that those people are living in an RV because the job that they had wasn't enough to pay the rent because of all the new money that comes in that drives the rent prices up. I mean, you can make laws that try to prevent it, but if you make laws that try and deal with the symptom, it doesn't take care of the problem. And that's what we end up facing. Like I was just seeing, I don't know. It's like the amount of money that this state had thrown at the problem. I can't remember. I was breaking it down, and I forget, it was something like $50,000 or something per person. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? This is how much money is going to get thrown at the problem, and it's not going to solve anything, and it's literally breaks down to that much per person. And I'm thinking, well, if you put that into some sort of tax sheltered annuity, just let them live on the streets and do their drugs for their entire life, and if they make it to 65, then they can have it, right? Then they can have it, and it'll take care of their end of life stuff. Just put when they're Here you got like, all these issues. It's like you're 20 years old, you're on the streets or whatever. Okay, we're going to take $40,000 or $50,000, right now in your name, and we're going to put it here in this little account. And then if you can make it to 65, yeah, well, then we'll just give it to you and that'll take care of the rest. Because that would be much better than to have blown it, because now they're still on the street and the money's gone and there's nothing to say for it. It's all gone. Right? I mean, it was just like they're now asking for help because they're in the hole. And they're like, all these services are going to get shut down. These people are going to get displaced. And it's like, no kidding. You think you might have been a little smarter with the money, but that's not what you were really trying to do, huh? Because you just didn't want them in your sight. That's what you were trying to do, is just get them out of your sight. That's why you spent so much money on it, is because you didn't like the way they looked. And you threw that money in a direction that would make them disappear from your sight. But then once the money is gone, here they are. They're back again. Wow. Because you didn't do anything to try and fix the problem. Because not understanding the problem to begin with means that you don't know what to do to fix the problem. And since the problem comes from new money coming in, creating the inequality, separating the rich from the poor, then you're going to have to end up blaming it on something, and it usually ends up being liberal politics. And since everybody wants to blame that instead of the real issue that has taken place, they'll never solve the problem. Not the people who are creating the problem, and not the people who are saying that they can solve the problem, because neither one of them understand what the real problem is. And that's the issues that we face. Like, I can tell you, before any law, any politics, anything was going to happen, I could tell you what it was that was going to occur. Now, I didn't know it was going to look the way it was, but I could tell you that all the money that was being thrown at the situation wasn't going to work, because what they were doing was trying to alleviate symptoms. And I could see it. Every single thing that I saw them throwing the money at, well, I was like, that's a problem that they're trying to fix. That's a symptom. It's not the problem. Again, they were putting like porta potties out because the problem of the people being on the street. And I'm thinking it's a symptom because nobody is allowing these homeless people into their store, because they create chaos and havoc and problems in that fashion. So what are you trying to do? Trying to deal with the symptom. Can't fix it. What time is it? Okay, we're 2 hours into this. We're 11:39. Well, we keep getting super chats rolling in. Scott123 with the $2. Opinion on BIT bonds, BTC Policy Institute proposal. I'm not a fan of Bitcoin outside of anything other than the speculative speculative thing that it is. I don't have any trust or faith or disbelief or any expectations of Bitcoin doing anything other than what it is doing right now. It's not going to be some fix-all to the world reserve currency system or something like that nature. In fact, what it would end up doing is creating more problems. The problems that I explained through Triffin's dilemmas, the same issues that we're going to face. You're going to have a problem with people who are going to hoard that currency, and it's going to deprive the rest of the world from being able to do transactions using that currency, because it's going to be hoarded. There's going to be a paper derivative that is going to be, produced in place of that, and you are going to have a paper currency system very similar to what we are experiencing today, based on the idea that Bitcoin is the ultimate gold digital currency or whatever. There's not enough of it. There's not enough to do the currency transactions, or to be a currency to do the transactions, and therefore they would have to come up with some alternative that is based on the idea that Bitcoin is backing it, and it'll be a fiat just like anything else. I mean, there's no way you can fix it. The Lightning Network being able to do transactions is fine. It's the amount of Bitcoin in the system that gets hoarded away, depriving the ability to do transactions going into the future. You can do the transactions because you can break the Bitcoin down even further, so there's an infinite amount of transactions that can be done. The problem is that I got these dice priced at $10 or a 0.00 whatever minute Bitcoin, and then there's not enough currency to buy the things. And so I have to constantly take the prices down in order to find the ability to do the transactions, because it's a deflationary currency. The more that people hoard it, it isn't going to work. Like, I don't trust Bitcoin outside of anything other than the speculative asset that it is. I want to get a hold of one Bitcoin, and that's it. Like, After that, I don't know. Like I don't know what I would do. Like I'm just gonna have a Bitcoin at that point. Uh, dollar is going to reverse just like last Friday. You're referring to blockchain. Yes, Bitcoin and others are backed by blockchain. Producing may have another definition if robots are taking jobs. Also, Triffin's dilemma is explaining a doom cycle for the reserve currency. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like it has a limitation to it. I have very little doubt in my mind. At some point, the dollar will fail. Like I have very little doubt in my mind. However, the idea of like the dollar failure happening based on the information that we have today on the way that they do things would seem like it's right around the corner. However, there is things that are in the system that we just don't know that they can deploy into our currency, right? Stablecoin issuance or usage. There's negative interest rates. There's, there's so many things that they could possibly come up with that they don't communicate about. And it's going to be difficult to know what those things are. If we were to take the understanding of how the Fed operates today, it would seem very short, like they don't have a whole lot left. But not knowing what it is that they can deploy into the future, that leaves us it leaves me very cautious to say that they could figure out schemes to continue this on. People say they don't like, the dollar is hated, it's losing confidence, like around the world again. The dollar was never loved. That's what I think is funny about it, is that the dollar was never appreciated, never liked, and never loved. Like even back before most people who are paying attention now are even alive. Like the Carter administration, let's see, it was the late 70s, so there's quite a bit. If you're like, basically 50 or older, then you would probably remember. But if you're under 50, then it's probably very difficult to think of a time of like the Carter administration in which that the dollar was so hated that he had to that administration, the Treasury was selling debt in a foreign currency. Very much like China dollar denominated debt, the United States had German mark denominated debt. They had Swiss franc dollar or Swiss franc denominated debt. That means that those bonds, when they came due in German marks, meaning the United States was paying in a foreign currency because they couldn't sell their debt in any other currency. Like that was the best interest rate that they could get at the time because nobody really trusted the dollar. Nobody liked the dollar. Never in the history of time has anybody really liked the dollar. And so when I hear people say, well, they don't like the dollar and they don't trust the dollar today, and I'm like, they never have. It's never been a case in which that everybody was just like, woohoo, dollar is awesome, right? I mean, there was the king dollar because they had no other choice. It was the only thing available. All right, Parth, thank you so much for the 40. What is that? 40. China eases monetary policy stance, vows more fiscal support. See, again, I'm thinking, everything that is coming out right now from these two particular nations, like China and the United States, when you think about it, if you just step back for just a second and look, and you think, okay, both these nations are in need of an inflationary scenario. How do you do that? Like, how do you create it? You can't just go out there and say, hey, think there's inflation coming. Okay, guys, everybody think about inflation and then maybe it'll just magically happen. No, you got to literally give them a credible threat to believe that there's going to be inflation. COVID, think about it, severing the supply chain and stimulating the economy and taking the balance sheet, doubling the balance sheet on the Federal Reserve. I mean, that's like, everybody thought hyperinflation. You know how many people came to me and said, dude, you are so wrong. When the dollar fails in the next couple of years, you're going to be crying your eyes out. And I'm thinking, okay, when lumber goes back to its normal price, nobody's going to be able to explain it except for me. And then here we are. Yeah. So it's just like, I look at things in a much different fashion because most people haven't really done any kind of deep research. They end up watching some videos that are well informed, but also very triggering and very like deliberately push in a particular direction so they can sell you something, sell you their book, sell you their gold, sell you their, course, whatever it is that they're selling. I would love to have something to sell you. I don't have anything to sell you. The only thing I have to sell you is a $1 membership to the Uneducated Economist membership only videos where we have broken down the speeches, giving you the true information on what it is that's happening out here so that you can internalize it for yourself. That's the only thing I have to sell. Oh, and some hoodies on Teespring. Okay. And you can go buy the Cantillon essay. I get a little commission off of that. So I do have some stuff for sale. Like, I mean, I sell some stuff, I guess. I mean, it's not going to make me rich by any means, but it supports the uneducated economist. And you don't have to buy the Cantillon essay. Down in the links, there's an Amazon affiliate link. If you click on that link, anything you put in the shopping cart for the next 24 hours and then is purchased within the next 30 days, I'll also get a commission on. So you can put whatever you want. Go buy a hot tub or something and put that on, just click on the Amazon affiliate link first, and then I'll get a commission off of that. And it's awesome. I mean, a lot of people for a while were like using it a lot, and I was getting like a commission check like once a month for like, I don't know, $100 or something. But I haven't gotten one for like, I don't know, 3 months. Like, I guess, I just stopped pushing it or whatever. But yeah, it's a way that you can support the uneducated economist. You don't have to do anything different than what you are doing. Just click on that Amazon affiliate link first, and then it'll come over. Email was sent to the iCloud. I'm sorry, guys. It's uned, UNED, the number 1 at iCloud.com. And don't send like a bunch of stuff to that email, because I do not check it. All right, I will not check it. I will not read it. There is no point in sending anything over to there. Okay. We can see on the special drawing rights list where are the currencies that can be replaced, the reserve currency. However, the Swiss franc isn't in that list, but has a good chance of being a reserve currency. It doesn't. It can act as a reserve currency in the sense that it can do world transactions, but it's never going to replace the dollar. And the reason why is because, again, as I have said in the past, there's no other nation out there that wants to go in debt as deep as the United States has done to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the U.S. Treasuries. There is a sheer amount of them, right? That is the problem. These other nations don't want to do what the United States is doing. The United States went deep into debt to provide the world with these safe and liquid assets called U.S. Treasury bonds. No other nation is going to go do that. Right? They can have pieces. They can do a little piece of the transactions of the world, right? I mean, there's nations that do that already. They already have been. There's just no nation that's like, it's literally like taking all the currencies of the world that are doing transactions in the world, and you put it in this cup, right? We shut the door. The volume of the entire cab of this truck is what the United States is doing for transactions, but what's in this cup is the foreign currency portion of it. Things that are being done outside of the United States dollar. This cup would have to grow to the size of the entire truck of foreign currency transactions, people willing, like nations willing to issue out safe and liquid assets to the level that the United States has done. They would have to increase it to the size to make this cup the size of this truck, right? That's the difference. Is it happening? Yeah. I mean, I'm drinking from this cup right now, right? But if you were to fill this entire truck up with coffee, it would be a hell of a lot more coffee than what would fit in this cup, and it would be a hell of a lot more than what I would be willing to make inside of my house in order to not only double the size of the amount that I'm drinking from this cup, but then to make happen to fill up this entire cab of this Explorer. You see the difference that I'm saying? It's like people say, oh man, all these other nations can do it. And it's like, no, they can't. Can they provide a currency that will do a transaction outside of their nation? Sure. Are they going to be able to do it in a fashion that is going to meet what it is that the United States is doing? Not a chance in the world. Not a chance in the world. All of them together can't do it. The United States is the largest debtor in the history of the world. They are providing the world with a safe and liquid asset of U.S. Treasuries. The same thing that is their problem is the same thing that everybody is demanding. And this is a problem that the Federal Reserve has talked about. Right? This is the unsustainable debt path that the United States is on, and the Federal Reserve is admitting to saying that they cannot continue to do, is to continue to provide the world with the safe and liquid assets of U.S. Treasuries. The world demands it. The only other people who can do anything about trying to alleviate that problem is other nations like the BRICS nations. Right? They start doing transactions so that the United States dollar doesn't have to do it. This is the only way that they can alleviate the problem. No other nation's going to do it. They can't. They just simply can't. Even if they wanted to. All right, Scott, 123, $2. Top 5 economic reports or indicators. I don't know those. Dollar and gold are settlements. U.S. offers interest on treasuries. Europe can, but it will not. No, it can't. Yes, wedges, patterns, etc. are amazing. Oh, wedge patterns, yeah. You guys voted to be poor. Okay. That's literally the decisions that you've made personally. You know, there's the rich and the poor is really comes down to a mindset of the individual, whether you live in a scarcity or an abundance mindset. And you don't have to have money. Like, that's the problem that I think a lot of times that people end up facing when it comes to wealth. Is because they think that how many dollars you have in your bank account determines whether or not you are wealthy. And this, nothing could be further from the truth on that. That is one of the hardest things that I had to overcome as far as my misconceptions and my misbeliefs, is that money in the bank is a sign of wealth. It's not, right? Wealth is food, conveniences, and pleasures of life, and how easy access you have to those things. That is wealth. Money in the bank is not a sign of wealth. And so, and since most people have that misunderstanding of it, they end up chasing wealth, trying to stack it up an account that says that they have $1 million. The entire time they are missing out on the opportunity of actually enjoying their wealth, right? Which is, again, food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. Here we go. I'm sitting like I'm thinking in the past, right? I'm sitting in a first class flight eating a white egg omelet, spinach omelet, right? On this flight. I'm going to go speak at this rebel capitalist event. I'm being put up in a hotel room, and the entire time I'm thinking, holy moly, how much money is this? Because I'm not paying for it, but I'm experiencing it, right? See, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people can look at the monetary part of it and say, well, it was worth $5,000. To me, I didn't even really, I mean, I thought about how much money it was and that I probably wouldn't have bought it for myself, right? But yet here I am experiencing this thing. So I've heard of people who take a trip all the way out here to the coast to spend a day out there on the beach. And I think about, like, the day off of work, the money that is spent to, the money lost in income, the money in fuel, the money in food, all that other stuff, to go out to the beach to enjoy that. And I can go out there anytime I want. Might cost me a little bit in gas to get there. It's not that far away. See, the value that I have inside of the things that make me rich, it's not the ability to have the money to go do it. It's actually being able to do it itself. I can go out to the beach anytime I want. It doesn't change my life. If I decide that I'm going to take the day off from work, from YouTube, from everything I do, if I decide that I'm going to take the day off and I'm going to go and sit on the beach for that day, it doesn't change my life one little bit. Not one bit. I could probably even do it 2 or 3 days in a row. I mean, I couldn't do it forever, because then eventually that would be my life and I would be a beach bum. However, I could do it one day, I could do it 2 days, I might even be able to do it for an entire week or more. And it really wouldn't change my life that much. See, I think about where's freedom? People who work every single day. I know this lady who works so hard at her business that she literally could not find a time for herself. She was so stressed, so irritated all the time. She had a new car, she had a nice house, she wore really nice clothes, top of the line clothes. Occasionally even took nice trips. Right? But her day-to-day life was a miserable existence. Miserable existence. And I thought to myself, that's fun. That's what you work. So you wanted to be a millionaire. That's how you did it. And this is fun. You're enjoying this? You couldn't even take a day off. You take one day off, go to the beach, decide that you're not going to answer your cell phone or talk to anybody or whatever. Your world starts to come undone. That's fun. I mean, that isn't worth it, right? Now you think about it. Everything is available all at once. Everything. There's nothing out there that's not available. It's all in abundance, everything. And when you think, man, I don't have this thing, you're in abundance of lacking. You're still in abundance, no matter how you think about it, right? No matter how you think about your lacking, you're in an abundance of lacking. Every single time you're in abundance, no matter what. And understanding that you're in abundance on everything just means that now you have to figure out how to align your energy to receive it. Most people align their energy to chase it. And when something is being chased, it will run. It will be difficult. It'll be hard. Sometimes it's fun. Chasing can be fun. Chasing something around, especially once you get it. If it was hard to chase it, and then a lot of times you feel rewarded for acquiring it. But chasing something because you feel that it's hard to get or that it's not able to acquire it, then you're going to find something chases from you for a very long time, and it'll be very frustrating and it'll be difficult to acquire it. But if you position yourself, it says, no, money just flows naturally. It just flows naturally. I mean, I got to show up at work for 8 hours a day, but what I do at work, is like trading my time for dollars. After that, I need to be in a position in which that maybe I'll do YouTube videos, try to do some online sales, try to do something else that, has money flowing towards me. I have a side gig where I go down to the bar and do some, bingo calling and stuff like that. These are to me, it's very natural feeling. Like going to work and doing sales, that feels natural. Coming out here on video feels natural. Going and calling bingo game feels natural. All these things puts me in the natural flow of money. It's just like, I don't think about it like how much I'm making. I don't think about how hard it is to get or how little it is. I just think, being in the position of it. Here I had videos that I was putting out, and I'm like, they don't get that much attention. And it doesn't really make that much money. What do I need to do to give them attention? Do I need to put fear-mongering, scary titles out there and trigger people within the first 30 seconds of the video? I wonder what that would do. Woo, look at the money roll in. I mean, I don't like out there singing happy dance. I'm just thinking, man, that's good for the channel. Maybe I might actually make it to the Rebel Capitalist this year. That's literally what I think about. And to see if I can continue to push this idea for the next, couple of weeks to see what happens. Money is actually an easy thing. It's just, it's the intentions and the feelings that people have about it. That's the hardest part, because most of the time we grew up in such a position in which that money was difficult. The bills were piling up, the debts were always there, there's some kind of issue, somebody gets fired or whatever. And money seems very difficult and hard and out of reach, but it's not. And it's not the money itself, it's what the money can do. And if you think about it, you can do so many things that you don't need money for that would give you the wealth, to give you the experience of having what it is that somebody else is willing to pay for. You actually have it in abundance right around you. You don't even realize it. Very much like being able to just go to the beach. You know how many people who live in the middle of the country who experienced a beach, just maybe never have experienced a beach, or maybe just a couple of times in their life? And I think I've experienced the beach So many times I couldn't even tell you. Like, it's just like the beach to me is just another thing. It's just a thing. It's not even that important because it's so available, it's so abundant all the time. But yet, if you don't live near the beach, it's expensive. It's a luxurious experience. It's all in the meaning. It's all in the way that you feel it and look at it. I think about it, it's just like I would love to have a new car. Like I look at my Suburban here, my old beat up Suburban looking thing, right? And I'm thinking, man, I would love to have a new car. But I get to have without the payment, like making the payment, now I have money to go and enjoy going to the museums. Like going and checking out the Heritage Museum in Oregon, or going and checking out the Air Museum or something of that nature. Those are expensive little trips to take just to go check out a place. But if you're not making car payments, well, then, doing one of those once a month, that ain't so hard. It's all, again, about the, material possessions. You'll own nothing and be happy. It was just like, I don't really need to own the Camaro. I got the Suburban and I can go to wherever I want and do whatever I want. It's just like, who's going to be impressed by the Camaro other than somebody who's probably not that important to me? Um, Air Museum on the coast is money. Yeah. Young people need a discount on assets. Boomers already had their chance for life on the easy mode. Again, I think you're putting too much expectations out there. We're not in that world anymore. We're not going to experience what it is that the boomers got to experience. It's not the same thing. We get a whole different world. We like, how many boomers that I know who I'm telling them, you could just go and access it on your phone, and they're like, oh no, I don't know. And I'm thinking, those people miss out on all kinds of wonderful things that exist in this world. They also get to miss out on some of the horribleness that comes from social medias as well. So I mean, that's actually a benefit. But when I think about it, I use my cell phone for just about everything I do. I'm 48 years old. I have very little like understanding of technologies and doing stuff and like computers and all that other stuff. Like I am really like not computer savvy. At work, I use a computer. It's my point of sale program. It's pretty easy once you understand it. So like, just like a video game, once you know the path of it, it's not like it's that hard to play or do it. But I'm not that I'm not technologically savvy, right? I mean, I'm pretty low on that. And I've used the internet to make money, right? With nothing more than a cell phone. And it wasn't that hard. Like the YouTube thing is a little time consuming and took a long time to, like, as far as the years it took to putting out videos before you could get it monetized. And then even after monetized, it took years before the revenue really started coming in any kind of decent fashion. But the reality is that there's so many ways of making money out there that literally the boomer generation just doesn't even do or even know that it exists. And here you are, the younger generation, and have all the ability in the world to take advantage of the situation and go and make all kinds of money that the boomers are literally not doing. But yet there's this attitude that the boomers need to pay somehow. And I'm thinking, why, man? You got all the opportunity. You got the understanding and the opportunity to just run circles around the boomers. You're just mad that they have collected assets over their years. And I'm like, that isn't right. Right? You don't worry about them. Go do your own. Go do you. uh, Living with your parents until you're 40 is not normal and it's not American. Well, I agree it's not normal and it's not American, but it is normal because that's the situation we are now in, right? What is not normal? What is normal, right? I mean, what's not normal is kids working damn hard, saving every penny they have, dumping it into Roth IRAs and 401ks and on their own personal online brokerage accounts, buying into gold and silver and becoming property owners as quickly as possible. That is also unheard of, right? But that's not normal because we don't live in anything that's normal. You have to own this for yourself. If you're expecting somebody else out there to have some sort of understanding of creating a system in which that your life is going to be better, you're going to be waiting a very long time and you'll never get it. It won't happen. You got to take responsibility for your own actions and yourself and your own economy. It's just the only way it's going to work. I mean, you can blame other people and you can hope and wish and pray that they're going to be voting in a way that will create a situation that is benefiting you. But most likely it's not going to benefit the neighbor or somebody else out there. So why should everybody line up for you? Give me that. Why? I mean, I don't expect anybody to line up for me. In fact, I'm pretty much to the point that I don't really care what's going on out there. I'm just going to try and understand it so that I can position myself for it, because I know they're not going to be making the right decision for me. I know they won't. In fact, they're going to be making decisions that's probably going to be exactly opposite of what I would think would be the right decision for me. So therefore, I just don't trust them at all. Period. It's like there's no trust level with them at all. Take responsibility for who you vote for. What you talk about, I am 47 and still live at home, of course, buying gold, silver, and stocks. I do pay the property taxes, and they are sky high in Seattle. I do work 60 to 80 hours a week. There you are, GMA. See, exactly. Exactly right. You think about it, man, if you were living on your own, you wouldn't be stacking gold and silver and stocks and all that other stuff. Right? Living at home is probably one of the best opportunities you could ever possibly have. Take advantage of that stuff, man. Pay your parents taxes to live there? Hell yeah. I mean, I hope my boys do that. I hope my boys stay and collect and stack up as much money as they possibly can until I'm gone. And I mean, if that's what gets them, like, this ain't fair. This world ain't fair. Ain't nothing gonna be fair. I mean, I would love for them to get out of the house, go and make your way, get your own house, start your own family, do all those other things, and do it the way I did, kid. Ha ha ha. Go out there and make your own. Well, this ain't the same world as that I lived in. It ain't the same world my dad grew up in. And it ain't fair. Ain't nothing fair about it. And it ain't going to be fair, and there ain't nobody who's going to step up and make it fair for you. So therefore, it's not fair. It's going to be unfair. Great. Got that out of the way. Let's figure out what it is that we need to do, because we know it ain't going to be fair. Times have changed. They absolutely have. But is less fair better? It doesn't matter if it's better or not. It's like, I mean, is sunny weather better? I had to open this door because the sun's coming through here. Is a sunny day better? I was hoping to mow the lawn, but it rained earlier. So now I can't mow the lawn because the grass is too wet. It'll clog my mower up. Is that better? Is the sun better or is the rain better? When it was raining, I didn't have to have my door open. The cab wasn't cooking. I mean, it was just like, which one's better? There is no better. It's all about the meaning that you're giving it. And when you say that fair is better, it doesn't matter what's better. Okay? People say we need to have a better system. No, you need to understand the system for a better way of life. There is no better system. The better system is non-existence. It's fantasies. It's like, this isn't going to happen because there's no way a system can be produced that's going to make it for everybody to make it right. It might be right for you, but it may be wrong for that other person over there. If you're 18 years old trying to figure out how to do it, or if you're 80 years old trying to figure out how to keep a hold of it, you're going to be making two entirely different decisions. There's no way that you can create an economy that's going to be beneficial for both of those two. I mean, you might, but then the people in the middle are going to suffer. Who knows? Okay? You can't do that. The only thing that you can do is figure it out for yourself, because that's the only thing that you have, and that's the only thing that's fair. We all have to deal with it the same. Now, whether other people have figured out to position themselves so they don't have to deal with the laws, and they don't have to deal with taxes, and they get all the income and all that other stuff, guess what? If you create laws that prevent that from happening, then you'll never get it either. But you can figure it out. There's nothing stopping you. I watch people become self-made millionaires all the time. I watch it all the time. I watch one guy do it in record time, and it was somewhat, like, impressive on how fast he did it. granted, he ripped a lot of people off doing it, and I don't mean to say anything, negative about him because he's kind of my bud, but, yeah, he ran it for as long as he could until eventually he couldn't do it anymore, and he took the money and left, right? I'm like, dang, bro, like, that took a lot of, like, cojones to do that, but you got yours, right? People weren't happy with him when it was over and all that. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, but yeah, it was like he walked away with the money, went and started buying houses and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're right, man. Ain't nothing fair. He didn't do it fair because he doesn't believe that the world is fair. Right? He doesn't, and because it isn't. He was just like, he was like, why should I limit my abilities and what it is that I am doing to acquire as much as I possibly can get? Why should I hold back when there's people out there who are 5 times more greedy than that, doing way more damage to the world? Now, granted, I don't want to be in this world saying, hey, I'm going to be one of the contributors to the pain. I'm not doing that. Okay? Me personally, I take it very mellow, very easy. Right? I don't impact a lot of people with, my interference in their lives, right? I don't do a whole lot that like messes with other people. Like I don't take money from other people in ways that is like not even fraudulent or scammy or anything like that kind of things, That's not the nature of the money flow that I want to be in. It's not fair. Nothing's fair. But then again, it's also in massive abundance. So that's fair. It's fair that you have all the abundance in the world around you. It's not fair that you were essentially raised with the belief that it isn't available to you, but that's not up to me. That's up to you to change your mindset. If you want fair, go play baseball. I'm gonna call it quits, guys. We're 2.5 hours into this, and I gotta go do some shopping. But it was a lot of fun hanging out here. 658 people with 578 likes, $88.70 in super chats. It's just amazing. All right. Is it fair that we're breathing? Good podcast. I appreciate it, guys. All right, you guys are awesome, but I am going to call it quits now. I'm going to go do some shopping, and I don't know, maybe we'll do another one of those shopping videos showing you, how it is that you can save on your grocery bills, because, so many people told me, it was just like, have you been to the grocery store lately? It costs an extreme amount, and so I went to the grocery store and showed how it is that we were purchasing, food and stuff like that, and saving a ton of money on it. And it was kind of funny, because, like, the last time we went grocery shopping, we bought a bunch of like our typical groceries, but then we had a bunch of snack food because it was like, spring break and little kids running around and all kinds of stuff. So we had like granola bars and other things on there. And people were like, dude, you actually eat that stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I eat that. And so the other kids in the neighborhood and shit like that, I was like, but yeah, damn right I eat that stuff. But yeah, we'll show you like how it is that we save a bunch of money grocery shopping. My wife is probably one of the best grocery shoppers that you could ever meet. She can feed a lot of people with just a short amount of funds. So, all right, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for hitting that like button. We still have people hitting that like button with 587 people watching and 589 likes. I love it when I see more likes than I see people watching. Thank you very much for the super chats. You guys are always so very supportive of the channel. What else can I say? Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.